for him to come up, and then
Okay,
we'll get
that's
started.
perfect.
Okay.
No problem. Thank you so much.
And then Attorney Famigletti, we're going to do Rodriguez after Douglas, just so you're aware.
But the
Morning.
We got it started like the beginning of this month.
Good morning, Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, good morning. How you doing?
Good, thanks. We're going to get started with your revocation hearing, okay?
Decided to be, sexual abuse. I can't yet until that's done if they do decide I need it.
Good morning. I am P.O. Meissner, hearing examiner for the Board of Pardons and Paroles. This is a revocation hearing concerning Douglas Geoffrey, number 379-786. Today is January 15th, 2025. This hearing is being conducted via video at the BOPP Central Office in MacDougall Walker Correctional Institution. This is a public hearing and public access. This hearing is available via video live stream. Can you please state your full name and DOC inmate number for the record, sir?
Geoffrey Douglas, 379-786.
Thank you. We have a parole officer present today. Please identify yourself for the record.
Michael Winnick, Office of Mental Health here.
Okay, and we have counsel here today. Please identify yourself.
Anna Dean on behalf of Mr. Douglas. Good morning.
Morning. This is a revocation hearing to determine whether you have violated conditions of your release. I will review and make findings of fact as to each of the charges against you. The state, not you, has responsibility to prove the allegations by a preponderance of evidence, that is. The better weighted evidence must establish that more probable than not the allegation is true. If I do not find there is a preponderance of evidence to support a violation of one or more conditions of your parole, I'll reinstate your parole, which is releasing and placing you back on parole supervision. If I find you have violated one or more conditions of your parole, I will consider whether or not your parole should be revoked. If I recommend revocation, I'll make a recommendation as to appropriate sanction, and my recommendation will be given to a panel for a final decision. If the panel wishes to impose a sanction beyond my recommendation, a supplemental hearing would be provided to justify additional confinement. So this is the procedure. I'm going to read you your rights. Then we're going to review the parole violation charge the state your parole officer is bringing against you. I will review and identify exhibits filed for the record. The state will then have an opportunity to present all relevant testimony. After the state is finished, you will have the same opportunity. After considering all the evidence presented, I will announce my findings. If I find you violated one or more conditions of your parole, the state will have an opportunity to speak to your background and history. After the state is finished, you will have the same opportunity. Do you have any questions about the purpose or procedure, sir?
No.
Okay. You have important rights today. The right to have an attorney present, and you have counsel here. You have right to receive the written notice of charges of violation. Did you receive the written notice? Mr. Douglas, did you get the notice?
I think so. Yeah.
You have a right to view the evidence. You have a right to submit evidence for your case. At this hearing, you have a right to call and examine voluntary witnesses and cross-examine diverse witnesses. Do you understand these rights and are you ready to move forward?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll now review the charge the state your appeal is bringing against you and the information underlying each charge. So, P1 attorney, could you please read the charges, and you do not need to read charge number 3 as a no finding was made at the time of the preliminary.
Roger. On 9/10/24, you failed to comply with providing a urine specimen to the halfway house staff per protocol of the halfway house. Based on your behavior, you are in violation of your assigned parole conditions, specifically under drug testing, as you're instructed to submit to a urine. You were made aware of the instruction to render and refuse to follow instructions.
Everything that's been told me so far.
Charge 2. On 10/10/24, you failed to attend your mandatory domestic violence group through Wheeler in Hartford, Connecticut. On 10/24/24, you again failed to attend your mandatory domestic violence group through Wheeler Clinic in Hartford, Connecticut. Charge 4. On 10/1/24, you refused to comply with a PAT search per halfway house policy after returning from a community pass. Charge 5. On 10/10/24, you failed to attend your mandatory domestic violence group through Wheeler Clinic in Hartford, Connecticut. And on 10/24, you again failed to attend mandatory domestic violence group through Wheeler Clinic in Hartford, Connecticut. Charge 6. On 9/17/24, you were issued a community pass to go to the hospital from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. You called the halfway house at approximately 8:08 p.m. to report that you were discharged from the hospital. Your pass was extended until 9 p.m. You did not return back to the halfway house until 11:59 p.m. Your whereabouts in the community from 8:08 p.m. until 11:59 p.m. were entirely on 9/28/24. 12:30 a.m. You were transported to the hospital. At 4 a.m., halfway house staff called the hospital to check on your status, and hospital staff reported that you were discharged at 3 a.m. You did not return to the halfway house until 5 a.m. Your whereabouts in the community from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. were completely unknown. On 10/1/24, you refused to comply with halfway house staff during the statewide collaborative offender risk system evaluation scores assessment. Due to non-compliant behavior, the assessment was not able to be completed. On 10/1/24, while at open heart,
Is that for like?
complete house count, you engaged in verbal harassment as you called staff explicit names and continued to speak staff disrespectfully. On 10/3/24, you failed to follow halfway house rules by having food in your room. When staff confronted, you told staff to suck your dick. You continued to inform staff that their mother also sucks dick. On 10/4/24, you were given a pass in the community to seek employment. Your pass was approved from 1:10 p.m. until 5:10 p.m. You did not return back to the halfway house until 7:20 p.m. You failed to notify staff that you would be late. Your whereabouts in the community were unknown from 5:10 p.m. to 7:20 p.m. On 10/4/24, approximately 6:11 p.m., you were given a pass to the hospital. You called the halfway house at 12:45 a.m. to report that you were discharged but returned back to the halfway house at 2:10 a.m. without hospital discharge paperwork. Your whereabouts in the community from 10/4/24 at 6:11 p.m. until 2:10 a.m. on 10/5 were entirely unknown. On 10/16/24, you engaged in a verbal argument with another offender. On 10/26/24, you were unsuccessfully discharged from the open heart halfway house. And charge 7, on 4/17/24, you participated in a mental health intake evaluation through Community Health Resources in Manchester. The evaluation was a part of your signed parole conditions. At the time of the intake, CHR had recommended that you participate in anger management group as well as a psychiatric evaluation to determine the need for medication to address your mental health symptoms, including psychosis, mood lability, impulsivity, and anxiety. You did not comply with these treatment recommendations and were subsequently discharged. This is a violation of your mental health stipulation whereby you will participate in a mental health evaluation and treatment as deemed necessary. On 10/24/24, you failed to attend your mental health and medication evaluation through community renewal team.
Thank you. And the state has filed the following exhibits pre-marked for identification purposes as Exhibit A, CT remanded custody; B, CT signed conditions of parole; C, notice of parole violation, parole rights; D, parole violation report; E, halfway house signed agreement; F, Connecticut DOC incident reports; G, parole and community services misconduct reports; H, open heart discharge summary; I, community health resources assessment summary; J, DOC non-life threatening incident report; K, CT judicial pre-sentence investigation report; L, state of Connecticut Board of Pardons and Parole Decision Information Summary; M, Wheeler Clinic email, REDV program; N, email from Lynch from CRT; and O is CT Penal Code 53-62. Did you receive the notice of parole violation report, and those other documents I marked? Did you review them, sir?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And council has filed the following exhibit that is pre-marked for identification purposes as Defense Exhibit 1, list of parole accomplishments and future plans for parole reinstatement. Do you need to continue this hearing to obtain any additional evidence?
We do not. Thank you.
We have no witnesses.
Yeah, it is.
So
There is witnesses though, miss.
witnesses for what?
Anyway, like that was never.
Is it someone in addition to who you and I had already spoken to, who you and I had already spoken about?
I've never.
No.
So I mean,
Well, so if it's not anyone new, then the people that you and I have already discussed, then I would recommend we go forward with the hearing today, okay? Because we did try and reach out to a number of witnesses you identified.
Alright,
Yeah,
All right, so,
Thank
you.
I mean.
so at this time, I'm going to swear in Mr. Douglas as well as P.O. Winokur if you'd like to speak today. So I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand so I can swear you in under oath. You solemnly swear or solemnly affirm as the case may be, the evidence you shall give during this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God upon penalty of perjury.
yes,
Okay, so at this time, the state has an opportunity if you'd like to speak in regards to the charge at this time.
I have nothing to say at this.
Okay. So it's not a defense opportunity if you'd like to speak at this time?
Yes, thank you very much. As for the first charge, I would just note that my client does contest the narrative that's contained in the misconduct exhibit F. He indicates that on this specific date in question, it wasn't an outright refusal. He indicates that it was a communication issue. He indicates that he had given a number of different urine samples while at this halfway house. And the procedure, as he understood it for giving these sort of samples, was that the person would say, the halfway house staff member would tell him, you know, you have us till a certain time, come down, do this. He indicates that on this specific date, he wasn't outright refusing. It was just a time issue. So I do just want to note that for that charge. As to the second charge, program participation, and as to the fifth charge, behavioral management program, my comments apply to both. I would argue for both that the standard has not been met. From the Exhibit M emails that are contained, it appears that 2 missed groups alone are not sufficient to be discharged from that program. In fact, Exhibit M indicates that clients are permitted 3 absences and are discharged on their 4th absence. Here, my client indicates that on the 10/10 date, he had been experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety due to having experienced the death of his brother and was grieving. He states that on that day he went to Wheeler Clinic and they could tell that he wasn't himself. They could tell that something was bothering him, and they told him that he could leave. He indicates that at no point was he advised that would potentially count as an unexcused absence. Had he known that, he certainly wouldn't have left. As to the 10/24 incident, he also indicates on that date, that was the day that he had gone to CRT to meet with his psychiatrist about medication management. And while he was there, I think he started to experience, from what he reports, some extreme anxiety, perhaps a panic attack of some sort, and indicates that he was faint. He laid down on the floor there and requested an ambulance to be called. That's the same date that this Wheeler Clinic appointment was for. So again, I don't believe it was an intentional absence in that situation. Nevertheless, I would just argue these are 2 missed absences, which from Exhibit M appears that those aren't sufficient alone to discharge him. As to Sarge 4, I would just note he indicates for this specific incident, it wasn't an outright refusal. He indicates he had come in. It was a miscommunication issue. The staff member didn't acknowledge him when he walked in, didn't stop him from the search as he typically did. So he thought he was free to return to his room. When he went upstairs, he indicates that the staff member came up and was annoyed with him. He was a little frustrated because he felt he was just downstairs. He should have been stopped at that point. And he feels that the staff member maybe took his annoyance or frustration for refusal, but he indicates to me that this wasn't an outright refusal. Halfway house placement, just one note. I just want to say my client's reporting that on some of those dates in which they're saying he had stayed out past curfew when he had to go to the hospital, he states that on at least one of those dates, he had been waiting for medical transportation to pick him up from the hospital, but due to a lapse in insurance that he was not aware of, he waited in the lobby, he states, after being discharged for a significant period of time, wondering where the med cab was, until he was informed that the insurance had lapsed. He wasn't able to utilize that resource and would therefore have to walk back. And then finally, my comments for charge 7. For this one, I would just note that the allegation that he didn't follow up with treatment recommended by CHR. CHR records that we obtained indicate that he did actually go back for another intake on October 21st of this year, when he indicated to staff he wanted to re-engage in their services. Unfortunately, this information I don't believe was included in the PVR anywhere, and it's unclear if CHR was ever contacted to confirm whether or not he went or had re-engaged in services. So I would just note that for the record. And my comment as to the incident that led to him having that event, the anxiety situation on 10/24 at CRT, I would just echo that comment. Again, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. So I'll be right with you with my findings.
Hey, miss, can I say something?
So, sir, I would advise against saying anything related to the charges. If you want to speak to your history or your background, you can do so at the appropriate time. Certainly if you want to say something, it is your right, but I would caution you as your counsel to not say anything about the charges.
Yeah, we'll see what the email says. We don't really know anything until. I know, I'm asking a lot of questions. It's been so long. I just feel like it's been so long since this started.
Hey, miss, so basically,
I've heard so many requests and nobody.
everything that I was accused of doing wasn't really that black and white, you know what I'm saying? Because they tried to say that, per policy, you're supposed to take a Medicare back, and my insurance lapsed, so I wasn't able to do that every time. So I started taking the Uber back, but it was medical reports that didn't turn into incident reports. And so I wasn't every time I wasn't
It's gonna be.
so it was times that I went to the hospital and I came right back and I had to pay out of my own pocket, and they didn't mention that. So I paid for Uber rides and I came right back because the Medicare insurance was lapsed, but I still, it's just a lot of stuff that wasn't included in what they're telling you. That's what I'm saying. So I wanted to that's why I was trying to bring it to your attention, because there's a lot of stuff that they didn't mention, and it wasn't that black and white. You know what I'm saying? Like, even the incident when they said with the staff that I said something disrespectful to him, it was an ongoing issue and it was documented.
Mr. Douglas, we explained a lot of this already to the hearing examiner, so I would just ask you to,
It's footage of that incident, and that staff had to be held back. They had to hold him back because all of this stuff, the parole was already aware of, because every incident I had, me and parole spoke about it. It wasn't like it just was lingering in the air. Me and parole addressed every incident I had, and we came up with our own plan to try to help me and move forward and do better in the future. You know what I'm saying? So, and even with parole officer Winnaker, I was always respectful to him. You know what I'm saying? Every time I address him with, I say, sir, and it's in text message.
Well, I'm going to give you another chance to speak in a minute, but let me just announce my findings right now, and then you'll get another chance at the end. Okay.
thank you.
But because it's a lot of stuff.
So we get another opportunity to speak to your background and your future plans and the positive things you were doing. Okay. So that would be the more appropriate time to mention some of this. Okay.
But this impacts the findings she'll make too, though. You know what I'm saying?
Sir,
I don't feel like a lot of the stuff wasn't addressed right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't doing the way they made it seem was not exactly what happened every time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could take responsibility for certain stuff, but a lot of the stuff I wasn't really at fault for. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand. We've made our comments and argument as to the charges. So the hearing examiner is going to announce her findings based on our arguments. Okay.
All right. So
I'm
I'm going to announce my findings. So on that charge 1, I do find you violated condition drug testing based on the evidence that was provided, which is exhibits B, F, and G. On charge 2, I do find you violated program participation based on evidence that was provided, B and M. As I stated, charge 3 was not taken into consideration and no finding was made at the time of the prelim. On charge 4, I do find you violated search based on evidence provided, B and G. On charge 5, I do find you violate condition behavior management program based on evidence provided, B and G. On charge 6, I do find you violated halfway house placement conditions provided on evidence that was provided, which is E, B, F, and G, parts 1 through 6, and no finding was made on part 7 at the prelim, so that's not taken into consideration. On charge 7, I do find you violated mental health evaluation based on evidence provided, B, I, and N. So that includes the fact-finding portion of the hearing. Before I make a recommendation, the state will have an opportunity to speak to your background history. After the state is finished, you will have the same opportunity. So, P.O. Winnaker, would you like to say anything at this time of the hearing?
Mr. Geoffrey Douglas has shown an inability and unwillingness to comply with the conditions of parole, as evidenced by his repeated noncompliance with mental health treatment, medication management, domestic violence treatment, and halfway house rules. All these behaviors are part of assigned parole conditions, which he agreed to. In the short 6 months of being in the community, he has been placed in 3 separate halfway house settings and 2 failed placements with his proposed sponsor, his mother in Manchester, Connecticut. Mr. Douglas has made it very clear to his supervising parole officer that he does not require, nor would he agree to comply with mental health treatment or medication management, despite current and past mental health assessments and recommendations. It should be noted that he required 7 trips to the emergency department at the hospital for various ailments and or his self-reports of having anxiety. His history of noncompliance has been its pattern is dating back to 2011, whereby he was noncompliant with court-ordered treatment at the ES program and unsuccessfully discharged. Despite repeated instructions by this officer that mental health treatment and medication management are required stipulations of his parole, he repeatedly refused instructions. It would be this officer's recommendation that Mr. Douglas receive. I initially said 6 months incarceration, but I would like to increase that based on the fact that since his recent violation, he's picked up 3 additional Class A violations. On 12/10/24, Mr. Douglas received a Class A ticket for fighting. On the same day, Mr. Douglas received a second Class A ticket for interfering with safety and security. On 1/10 of this year, Mr. Douglas received another Class A ticket using housing. At the present time, Mr. Douglas is currently housed in segregation, the restricted housing unit, because of these repeated non-compliant behaviors.
I gave them that. Yeah.
So what's your recommendation?
No firearms in the house. Well, my pistol permit.
All right, I can hear you broke up.
Cut it up and throw it away.
I would like to recommend 8 months.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I turn over to the defense?
Nothing further.
Okay, let me turn over to defense if you'd like to speak at this time.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to just address at least one of the disciplinary reports. I had spoken to my client about the one that occurred on 12/10, that first one that had to do with fighting.
Hey, miss, let me speak for myself, because she's not really even fully involved in the situation. Like, she's not really doing her job well enough. It's part she's not even mentioning to the stuff that's going on. Like, the incident that I'm just saying for right now, it's a medical report associated to that. And I refused housing because I got into a fight with my cellular attack. So I refuse housing. You know what I'm saying? So for you to say it's a medical report that's associated to that incident right now, you could investigate it and we could continue this and then get the evidence or the proof that I'm saying and then come back and situate this, because I'm not taking. We're not coming back. This is the hearing right now. This is the last part of the hearing. So I want to know about your future and background and what you plan on doing when you go back out.
So
can I also comment on what's going on now? Like what he just mentioned?
Yes, let me get through your background.
Yes, I'll speak. Can I comment on what he just mentioned? Can I comment on what he's saying?
You can comment very briefly on it, but you already explained to us the situation from the most recent incident.
I'm talking to the other lady. I'm sorry.
No, she's correct though. I mean, I need to hear about. If you already just explained to me what happened about the refusing housing and how there was a fight and how he attacked you, so I'm listening to what you said, and I noted that.
So the first incident, there's a case report that I'm filing with a trooper, Raphael, Rafala. He's out of Hartford, Troop H, and I'm trying to figure out now. It was an incident in the other facility where I was attacked. And the CO, it was 3 parts of the incident. He's supposed to call a code. He didn't call a code. He watched the whole fight and he didn't do nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And so they said on my part, I could file a report trying to press charges against that officer for what happened. So that's what I'm trying to do. And the third one was just, there's 3 incidents. It was one where they said, that during the incident, after the fight, I defended myself because no one else would call the code and no one else defended me. You know what I'm saying? So I was on the, even if she has the ticket. She also has the ticket, and it says that I was on top of my bunk and somebody tried to attack me on my bunk. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And Miss Dean has the ticket. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So Miss Dean has the ticket, and it basically just shows that I was attacked and I was on my bunk and I was defending myself. And the CO was there. He didn't call the code until the last part of there was 3 parts to one fight. The third part of the fight, he called the code. So it wasn't as if it wasn't like I was attacking somebody. I was attacking my bunk and I defended myself because he didn't help. And then they run me.
I have it noted what you said. So let her talk about, we have to get into your future. I need to know about what you want to do when you get out and stuff like that. So
there's one more incident that I was going to mention.
Well, you only have 3 tickets.
Yes, all 3 of those you've discussed all 3 of the different tickets, sir.
Either way, it was all.
All right. Well, so then
I'm going to speak to your background and future plans, okay? And then if there's anything I don't cover, we can address that after, okay? So Mr. Douglas is 31 years old, born and raised in Hartford. Primary source of support in the community is his mother, Miss Brinson. He also reports 2 children, 11 and 13. While at Open Hearth in October 2024, my client unfortunately experienced a tragic loss of his brother who passed away. This has been a significant stressor for him, and he has been grieving this loss ever since. While on special parole supervision beginning on April 2nd, he has utilized the following housing. He was first sponsored by his mother at an address in Manchester from April 2nd to May 13th. From May 13th to June 21st, he went to the Bishop House New Opportunities Program in Waterbury. He reports that he did successfully complete that. He then again was sponsored by his mother June 21st to July 2nd. Then from July 2nd to July 25th, he went to Renaissance Central in Waterbury. He again utilized Bishop Halfway House until September 4th and then transitioned to Open Hearth where he was until his remand. He reports graduating from Manchester High School. He previously received disability assistance in 2021 and was most recently in the process of reapplying for those services. He reports he used to receive disability in 2021 and is hoping to get those services reactivated. On April 17th, 2024, he completed an intake at CHR in Manchester. And based on my information that I received, I believe did a follow-up intake in October of this year. He went to CRT in Hartford on September 13th to complete an intake. And then on October 24th, he also participated in Wheeler Clinic in July of this year. He did an intake and psych eval there. He did a readmission intake in October and then does report attending some sessions of Explore. As far as future plans go, he's hoping to be sponsored by someone in the community. He is open, though, to housing recommendations. He is also hoping to enroll in a trade school to further his education and was planning to reapply for disability and also is hoping to utilize a temp agency for part-time work, potentially in a warehouse. He also wants me to let the hearing examiner know that he is open to any sort of treatment recommended. I would ask that he not be held longer than the current amount of time he's been in. He's been back since October. That's nearly 3 months at this point. So I would argue that that's sufficient. This is, I believe, his first violation of his special parole. Sir, was there anything that I didn't address that you need to comment on?
What area do you want to live in? What halfway house area?
I could go live in I did good in Waterbury, you know what I'm saying? And
okay.
Probably
that's Hartford. Your first choice is Waterbury.
Probably Hartford. Maybe Hartford too.
Hartford is like a backup, choice? Maybe.
Hartford backup.
You would you prefer Waterbury to Hartford?
I had a good communication with the parole officer in Waterbury, so probably yeah.
Okay.
But I had a good communication with Whitaker too. But I you know what I'm saying? I see part of my situation is when I get overwhelmed like that, I shut down and I stop eating, I stop showering, you know what I'm saying? I stop working out and doing all the stuff that I know that's going to help me cope mentally, you know what I'm saying? And typically I had a good communication with Winnaker, but the day he came to see me, everything, I was in shutdown mode and I didn't embrace him right. And after that, he's been gunning for me to have more time served, you know what I'm saying? But prior to that, every communication I had with him, whether it was through text or through like verbally speaking, I always was respectful and I always addressed him as sir, and I never disrespected him, and he always gave me enough leverage because he know I wasn't just doing bad and just doing negative, you know what I'm saying? And until that one time, even when he came to see me for the visit, after I got arrested, he embraced his way of embracing me was, hey, what's up? You know, Dad, it's crazy that I leave for the weekend and I come back here in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Right, well, hold on. Well, we're talking about you coming back out. So that's what I wanted to know. So you're okay with getting treatment for mental health services when you get out?
Miss, listen, I went to CHR and I did that on my own accord.
Jeffrey, at this point,
Wait, I just want to explain to her because you didn't really explain to her. I just want to tell her that I went to CHR on my own accord and I decided that I wanted to be in. If you go through the CH record, the most recent record, because some of the stuff on that file was mixed up. Like they said, I didn't attend Willard Clinic when I left from Willard Clinic in an ambulance, which shows
Mr.
that I
Douglas,
attended.
she's already made findings on the charges. She's just asking going forward if you're willing to do treatment.
Tell her, you know what I'm saying? I just want her to know, huh?
Do you want to participate in mental health services in the community when you go back out?
Absolutely. I had a domestic, because the domestic violence Winnaker sent me to, I had to pay for out of pocket for each individual group. I didn't have the money to do it. And I decided to switch over to CHR. It's free groups there. It's domestic violence. It's anger management. And my psychiatrist was upstairs, or my physician was upstairs.
Okay.
I was seeing a psychiatrist and I was seeing a therapist there too. So everything, all my conditions was being seen through one outlet. I didn't have to go to Willard. He didn't know that though. The only thing I say that I'm really guilty of was not working closely with parole. I wasn't that I didn't all out refuse parole. I just wasn't working closely with them because I didn't have to be in the halfway house. It's just my sponsor didn't work out, so I ended up back in the halfway house.
Yeah.
Sir,
Right,
she's
so
already
I'm
made her
gonna-
finding on the charges. Now she's going to make her recommendation, okay?
Yeah, so just give me a second. I'm going to make a recommendation. I'm going to put on the record. I've listened to all the testimony. I have reviewed all the evidence provided by the state. I will put on the record. Defender was in the community for about 7 months before being returned to custody. He did receive 7 misconducts. This is his first parole violation. There is a recommendation of an 8-month incarceration for this violation. The offender does have, per our records, has failed 5 out of 5 community releases in the past and has received 3 DR since his incarceration. Based on all the information I have, I'm going to recommend that parole be revoked, to be re-paroled for April 25th of 2025. This is about a 6-month period of confinement as a sanction. I recommend the following parole conditions: halfway house placement, behavior management program for domestic violence and anger management, no contact with victim AP, and mental health evaluation and treatment as deemed necessary. My findings are going to be presented to the parole board. I believe that is going to be on the 30th. So January 30th, I'm going to present this to the parole board, and the board's going to make the decision. So the board can lessen that sanction. They can keep it the same, or they can make it longer if they'd like to. But you will get it in writing about a week after January 30th, what the parole board's decision is, because this is just a recommendation. So they're going to make the choice on what's going to happen, and you could talk to your attorney as well to see what happened that January 30th.
So basically, what is this based off? You know what I'm saying? What is your, like, what's the basis of me having to do? Because I know typically people only do 3 months when they get first violation.
Well, there's no typically. It depends. Each person's completely different. So it's based on each person and their behavior and the type of violation and all of that. So it is up to the board, like I said, though. So they can agree with that or they can lessen it if they like to. But you'll know January 30th what the board's decision is. Okay. So you'll know.
If you have any questions, you can reach out to my office and I can let you know what the board decision is. Okay.
So can I present
You're not presenting anything. The hearing's done and the board
Yes.
just looks at the write-up from the hearing, what happened, and then they're gonna make their decision.
So I won't be able to present the
No,
ticket.
you're not there.
You know how you said
No.
it? You know how you said, because with all facts included, you said that something about the tickets that I won't be able to, that the tickets was a part of why I was being.
Mr. Douglas, she adopted a 6-month recommendation. It's going to go now to the board for review. They get the final say. If the board wants to make the sanction any bigger, then you will potentially get, another hearing after that. But if they want to, make the sanction smaller, if they want to affirm the sanction, they can do one of those things. So we don't know what they're going to do yet. So we need to wait until that date comes on the 30th to determine what they're going to do. But at this point, the hearing's over. She explained her findings. She explained the basis on which she made the sanction. Okay.
Yeah, so you'll know, and then you can take it from there. So you're all set for today. I wish you the best of luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I work for Bill's Home Appliance Installation, so that
You're all set, Mr. Douglas.
that was probably over 10 years.
You can tell the officer you're all set.
Was Home Appliance.
Hey, listen, this ain't even fair to me though, because
Pretty much.
at the end of the day, whatever y'all saying I did, I could prove that I didn't do. So how am
Sir,
I?
she already made her findings. We're past this. We already presented the evidence that we had. We already addressed the charges. At this point, the hearing is over. Okay.
Finish show up at 4 in the morning.
Just so you can tell the officers you're all set. I need the next inmate to come in, please.
That job I have with driving across Dutch.
Thank you, feel unfair.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Good morning.
No, because I.
Good morning.
Told my lawyer, she's like, you're only gonna do 6 months. You're only gonna do 6 months. Here's 6 months and. But, because, yeah, I figured there's no point in trying to get into industry or this and that and. Same thing with like school, like they said, there's no point in taking classes because school doesn't start again until, like, from when I got in, the next round was gonna start until January. Which is now, which would be 6 months. I was just positive, everyone was telling me, oh, 6 months, you're gonna get out in 6 months, and I get in here, and that's.
You know whose voice that is we keep hearing through this?
That's it. That's at MacDougall. That's at the officers. Unfortunately,
okay.
that room is not,
It's not
Quiet.
padded or anything. It's not.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Miss, it's crazy though, because regardless of what I said, you basing everything off of what they tell me.
Listen, I already announced my findings. I'm not
I
discussing
know,
this
but I'm
again.
just saying, just for
Mr.
somebody
Douglas?
else.
Sir, this
Mr.
is
Douglas,
the
I'm wondering-
hearing is over, sir. Okay. The if you have it, you need to tell the officers, okay, that you're ready for them to
Yeah.
come back and get you.
You let the officer know you're all set?
Yeah, we just gotta wait someone to come pick him up, so I'm just gonna mute on this side.
Okay.